Theta-wave treatment, binaural theta-wave treatment, therapy, for borderline personality disorder and the basal ganglion. I believe that's what it's called, the basal ganglion. The courage engine of the brain. Also, the basal ganglion is a super important part. It's the specific part of the brain that is affected by theta waves. It is responsible for learned habits, is what I'm going to call it, but it's not exactly learned habits. Like riding a bike or writing or things that are not affected by amnesia. And that is also responsible for emotional regulation. It is a key component in courage, because of its nature. Now, a big part of borderline personality and extreme emotional dysregulation, which is a big chunk of borderline personality, is an understimulated basal ganglia. The basal ganglia can get destroyed or damaged and stop working, causing a dysregulated person, a person who becomes completely and utterly emotional reactionary due to physical trauma or damage to the brain. Theta waves, 40 to 8 hertz, and the basal ganglia interact to the modulate emotional states and decisions making under stress, bridging deep relaxation with potential courage. While theta waves facilitate emotional processing and reduced fear, studies show that the basal ganglia theta activity, particularly in the subthetic nucleus, often indexes rather than directly induces the traits of anxiety. Theta waves, basal ganglia, and anxiety. Basal ganglia theta power. Research shows that an individual, particularly those with Parkinson's, theta wave power within the basal ganglia is positively related to anxiety. The basal ganglia, traditionally linked to motor skills and functions, play a key role in emotional processing and subjective feelings. Anxiety regulation. Increased theta alpha power in the basal ganglia is a potential biomarker for anxiety that can be modulated through techniques like deep breathing and stimulation. Courage, fear, neural mechanisms. The courage circuit. Courage involves active neural networks that quiet the amygdala's fear response to our orbital frontal cortex. Orbital frontal cortex, the AFC, allowing the rational action despite fear. Theta and threat response. Theta waves are prominent in the amygdala during situations of fear, with the competing theta gamma coupling managing the switch to fear and safety. Induced courage. Studies have identified specific brain regions where stimulation can modulate fear and induce boldness. Effort reward. The basal ganglia utilizes beta oscillations to track effort, while the prefrontal uses the theta oscillation to track reward, essentially for making the bold reward choice. Meditations, breathing, all this nonsense. Now, theta waves on borderline personality. This caught my attention. I actually tried some of these things early on because some guy in Ackworth recommended them to me, and I just thought they probably wouldn't affect you because it doesn't make any sense to me, but sometimes things don't have to make sense to work. Individuals with borderline personality disorder, BPD, often show altered theta waves activities, 3.5 to 8.5 Hz in the brain. Particularly low increases in frontal regions during emotional regulation, reflecting impaired top-down emotional control. Studies suggest that EEG signature correlations in emotional dysregulation, in self-injuries, behaviors, and decision. reduced theta. People with BPD show lower theta activity, increasing the frontal brain region during cognitive reprisal or of emotions compared to healthy control, indicating diminished regulation capacity. Research shows that an increase in prevalence of slow wave activity, BPD, often associates with the local networks of hyper-excitability. Elevate theta activity has signified correlation between pain and sensitivity, higher disassociation scores, detachment, and impatience. Neural network dysfunction. BPD involves a failure of the prefrontal cortex to control the amygdala. Reduced frontal theta activity, which is crucial for regulation, corresponds to this lack of top-down inhibition, making it a potential marker for impaired mentalization and emotional dysregulation. Potential theta-waves target. These EEG alterations can help identify targets for such therapies as neurofeedback of the brain simulations to improve emotional regulation in individuals with borderline personality. What am I getting at with this? I did a theta wave treatment all night, listening to theta waves, and immediately noticed they completely changed. After about 10 minutes, they had completely changed the way I felt. The anxiety and irrational fear and a lot of the things that just my body kept putting out and putting out and putting out and putting out. And and like I said, I felt stuck in the fight, fright, flight, freeze response, but it's about to get weirder. For the longest time, and I imagined the amygdala in my mind. I visualized it, and it communicated back with a series of colors, magentas and reds and stuff. So I just imagined orange, because orange is the color of courage. The basal ganglion basically controls the levels of courage that are allowed into the amygdala. This is why the theta waves treatments are important, because they alter how you perceive things, and your current emotional state, and what you're doing, and how well you can learn things. It has an effect on learning, and I get the sneaking suspicion something about heavy metals probably damages the basal ganglia, or something about hyperstimulating the amygdala destroys the basal ganglia. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But the good news is due to using the theta wave treatments, I am more emotionally regulated. Yay. I feel like I can handle a lot more. I don't feel like I'm constantly being crushed, I guess. And there's a lot of things that I simply view differently. Now, after the initial use of the theta waves was very fascinating, because I went with my sister to work and she was babbling on about some nonsense, and I didn't realize it, but it felt like there were two men in my head having a conversation in a language I didn't understand. And they continuously talked, and then later, when I dropped my sister off at work, and I drove the truck home. On my way home in the truck, my brain did this weird thing where it completely fabricated the day's events, as if like I was viewing the early steps of my day through a different lens in a different life. And these were not the memories. These are not the memories you're looking for, you know. And the entire day was kind of dictated by these two men that were conversating. And I realized what I was witnessing was my brain communicating with my basal ganglia. And it was communicating to the basal ganglia, which I assume can't see or hear anything, but it can feel, and it can interpret. Yeah, it works like an intuition circuit. And that was the weird thing that was going on in my head. And I was stuck in a kind of brain fog when this was happening with the theta waves. Once I got home, I decided to do more theta waves to see if there was some kind of treatment, and I kind of stabilized out of that state. But ever since then, I've been emotionally regulated, so I guess be ready for that if you do a theta wave treatment and you think like, oh, there's something weird going on in your head. I think that's just old circuitry turning back on. And I want to talk about when you do chelation therapy for the first time and it feels like your soul's coming back to you, like your soul's coming back into your body. It is one of the most amazing feelings on the planet, and yet this entire time you've been existing without your soul. Okay? I think what's been happening to me, and maybe borderline personality, might just be damaged basal ganglia in the human brain. I think maybe you can damage the basal ganglia through extreme trauma. That's my theory. But I also think that giving it theta waves enables it to turn back on, which I believe is what happened to me. Yeah. Wow. More therapy. Whoop-de-doo. So in short, I have turned the courage circuit of my brain back on, and I have acetylcholine. So now I have technically everything I need to be brave. Isn't biology shocking? Wow. Amazing.